This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Okay, before we do anything today, before I even introduce her anything, I want you to share with everybody that quote that you just shared with me. Let's go.
Okay. When a person enters a certain level of consciousness, whatever he or she intends will happen.
So to translate that, you have to be at a certain conscious state if you want to create your future, i.e. manifest it, send it in a direction, whatever it might be. Today, we are going to talk about different levels of consciousness, maybe even the subconscious. They call something the superconscious. I don't even know what that is. The conscious and what you're referring to make it all happen. She is somebody that understands all of this as an energy healer and spiritual coach and so much more. And she's back with us as our professional of the year. Jen Fedorowicz is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Steve. Thank you for having me.
So we've talked before about manifesting and how what you believe becomes your reality. But this level of consciousness to truly make it happen, what is this level of consciousness?
So, okay, everything's consciousness. When we talk about energy and that everything's energy, that energy is actually consciousness. All right. So that's the first thing. God is consciousness, the highest level of consciousness that there is. And each of us is a stream of consciousness. Okay. So before you pressed play, you mentioned something about subconscious, superconscious, conscious. So I'll just review this really quickly. Your conscious mind is not meant to do anything other than observe reality. We think our conscious mind is supposed to make things happen, but it's actually not. It's just an observer.
Oh.
We receive what those ideas and suggestions for creating our reality from our superconscious mind, because the mind is outside of us, right? We've been led to believe that the mind is in our brain, but consciousness, the mind, that knowing, it's everywhere. Okay, does that make sense?
For the first time ever, I'm going to say somewhat.
Okay.
To be honest.
So you're receiving consciousness, actually. And then you're meant to perceive it from within the mind. That's what the conscious mind does.
Where are you receiving it from? And how would you describe what it is?
It is cosmic. It is the universe, the unified field. Some people would call it God, the field of potentiality. Like so many people have called it so many different things. But we as human beings live in this field of consciousness, like soup. It's everywhere. Okay. And then you are your own individual stream of that consciousness.
Well, I've heard more and more recently, and I'm trying to absorb it, in that we think, there's this thing I always believed: the universe supports us. The universe wants the best for us. It's out there. It's doing what it can to make life the way it should be for us. We're not here to be miserable, right? But then I hear from others that we are the universe. We create the universe. It's not this thing around us. We're it.
Yes. So that can lead us right into levels of consciousness. When we think we're separate from the universe, separate from God, separate from each other, we're living in a third dimensional reality, or we're living in that third dimensional consciousness. That's a level of consciousness of separation. Probably most people are living in that third dimensional consciousness of separation. It doesn't mean you cannot create from there, because you are creating. You are creating your life. But the third dimension is filled with resistance and lack, and that all of the parts of being a third dimensional being are resistance, lack, separation. And so whatever you're creating will feel difficult. It will take longer because you have to push through the resistance. You have to make it happen.
Where is this resistance coming from?
It's just third dimensional reality is resistance. For you to get from point A to point B, you have to get there. It takes time. You have to move through resistance to get there.
Well, why does
But
it have to be that way?
it's the way it's been designed, I guess. I mean,
And where does
I
it
don't know the answer to that.
where does it come from? Is it the resistance? Do we I gotta believe we impose some of that resistance on us, be it past traumas, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. I'm just, top of my head throwing this out there. But then there's other things in the way, people, situations that make it tougher to execute what you really want to get done or manifest or whatever it might be.
So I believe that you came here, that each one of us came here as this higher dimensional being. We came into the third dimension to experience it, but then to wake up to the fact that we can manifest what we want. We can manipulate, isn't probably the best word, but we can create the life we want on this third dimensional plane when we awaken to the higher levels of our consciousness.
So there's also the thought that there's the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ascend to those dimensions, is there less resistance?
Yes. Yes. So the fourth dimension, it's a part of you. Remember that too. So that you're not going to another dimension, you're awakening that part of you.
Mm.
The fourth dimensional part of you is all about transformation. And really, a lot of humanity is into transformation right now and self-development and
Yes.
understanding, right?
It seems like the masses, or a good part of the masses, kind of woke up. Have a different view of things, a more spiritual look at things. I'm feeling it's been in the last, especially since COVID, there's been like a kick up. I'm just an observer, but I know in myself, for many different reasons. I absorb this. I see it. I believe it. I'm working with it, trying to find the consciousness level I need to be at to get it done. But yes, like it seems like more of us are in that the fourth dimension mode.
Yes. And that's really the whole planet is moving towards being a fourth dimensional planet rather than a third dimensional planet. But the next dimension is the fifth dimension, and that is love. It comes down to love. When you begin living, I think we talked about this maybe a few weeks ago, but when you begin living as a fifth dimensional being, you are in a space of love. And with that, there's no judgment.
Has it always been here? The fourth and the fifth dimension, it's always been here.
Yep. There are 12 dimensional parts of you that I study and work with. And when I do an energy alignment or an energy healing, I work with 12 dimensional parts of you. The 12th dimensional part of you is like a big orb or egg shape around you that is pure divine God energy coming into form. We are creator creating. So we are creating our physical body and we are coming into form. And I'll say that's a hard thing. I was on the beach yesterday with my ex-mother-in-law, and she said something about religion and God. And I said, I believe we are all God in, our own form. And she sort of looked at me like I was crazy and said, well, that's okay if you believe that. So I say that because I'm sure many people will hear that and think, maybe not. I can't believe that. I can't wrap my head around that.
But I mean, it loosely goes back to where it's been said that we are the universe. We're our own universe. It kind of sounds what you just said.
Yes, exactly. Just another way to put it into words, but absolutely. You are your own universe. You are God in a body, or the universe in a body, and you have immense power, and you activate or bring that immense power online as you wake up to these higher parts of your consciousness.
And there's been lots of songs out there that refer to practicing your own religion.
Mm-hmm.
It could be what you created for yourself, call it religion. And, and there's different religions that we subscribe to, but, your own religion is the one that you created within your godly self. And what is that religion? It could be values, morals, whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking what you said and trying to process it.
The thread that runs through every religion is love.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a love, it's an unconditional love. It's not necessarily, I think it takes some practice to tune into that love, the love of this divine universe that runs through each one of us. And again, I always feel like it's so important to bring up there's no judgment in that love. It's not about, I love this person or I can be really loving, but what they're doing over there really ticks me off and I think it's wrong. Then you're not in that, as my quote says, that certain level of consciousness. You have to be in that level of consciousness for enough time to gain momentum to bring your dreams into your reality. So you got to love it all.
Let's go back to that conscious level that you need to make your dreams come true or manifest. How do you bring that to you? How do we work with that?
It comes down to being in the space of love, when you're connected to love, when you're tuned in or awake at the fifth dimensional level of you or the fifth dimensional part of your consciousness, then you're at such an elevated consciousness, which I should say doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. It's just a level, like a game, in a video game, you get to that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about, well, you get to this level of consciousness and those people aren't there. So what's wrong with them? Because now you just fell right back down from that level of consciousness. Right. So it is looking at life as if it's all perfect. It's happening. It's unfolding perfectly. It's happening in your favor, and being able to love all of it, even what in the past you would have judged or thought was wrong or shouldn't happen. I'm not saying it's easy.
I was just going to say that like that doesn't sound like it's easy. So that means that all those things that troubled you, those people in your life, those situations, you have to almost like brush it off your shoulder and suck it up and look at it through the eyes of love. That next text that you're going to send, that may be a little harsh. You need to take a moment. All those things you need to do to get to this level. Am I making sense on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And all those things that annoyed you or bothered you or you felt you were wronged, if you go back to the fact that you're the creator of your life, those were all things you created, you drew into your life for one reason or another, whether you were conscious
Jen, I
of
can't
it or
hear
not.
you right now. Oh, static. Where did Jen go? I can't hear her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, when we talk about sending that text to somebody, it's a relationship. Whatever it might be, friendship, partnership, business, whatever, it always takes two. So you are creating it, whatever it is or was.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not easy to accept that. Okay. What if you're in that situation? You want to just rise above all of this. Like mom always said, take the high road, take the high road. But what about if somebody just has done you wrong? Again, we go back to relationships. What it was like an 80-20 situation, and you're 20, they're 80. How do you accept and or swallow that situation so that you can keep ascending and get into the dimension you want to be in?
Well, so if you think of it as it happened for you, when I was 26, I was married, had a 1-year-old child. My husband left me for another woman. Hardest thing I ever went to. Yesterday, I was laying on the beach with that ex-husband, his mother, our son, our new grandson. And I can honestly say I have no no animosity toward that man. Actually, I'm really grateful it happened to me because I am in a different marriage, a wonderful marriage that's happy. So it's easy for me to look back and see how I created that, how I drew that consciously, whether we had a soul contract to be together for a while. But all going through all of that made me confident and independent, and all the qualities that I wanted to have as this woman on the planet at this time. He helped me do that. He pushed me into that. Okay. And so I can look back at that situation and see that it was such a gift to go through that. Now, I couldn't see that when I was 27, 28. I hated him and it was awful. And I was at that other, at a lower level of consciousness at that time. But with all the work that I've done and what I've really learned and come to understand about who we are as these creative beings, I believe that was all part of my plan for becoming.
And I see where you're going with that. It's and you try. I don't want to be that person that, puts the rose-colored glasses on in a horrible situation, and then you look at it, well, that was good. There was a lesson in there, and it was all fantastic. But many times, if you take a step back, you will see it, you'll find it, you'll feel it, why that may have happened and how that may have supported you. Took you a long time, though. You were 26 at
It
that time.
it did, and I really started deeply studying this work about a decade ago. I would like to say when people are going through really hard times, I think it's important to say, especially like terrible diseases and things, there's so much sadness and difficulty right now on the planet. I guess always has been, but I don't believe that anybody would consciously create those horrible things. But I do believe on a soul level that they knew, and perhaps they even created those things to help with them to awaken to who they really are. But I would never, I wouldn't want, that sounds kind of cold if you're just living a horrible
I got
life
you.
and you created it. Um, but soulfully, I think it's always part of your plan, and ultimately part of your plan to up leveling to these higher levels of consciousness and really knowing yourself.
Well, it's part of the plan. Sometimes you don't always fully understand the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start looking back, like I have a friend, um, he was in a car accident with his wife and his son, and this is going back about 2 months. He is grateful. He got rear-ended. He had still dealing with spinal issues, wife and everything. He's grateful for that. He is so happy he had that accident.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. And you want to know why?
Yeah.
Because that accident revealed that his wife has thyroid cancer and just had surgery on Friday. And she's doing well, very wonderful. They would have never known it, and it could have progressed. But because of that accident, they were, she had some neck problems from, whiplash and all of that. And that's where they identified what was going on in her thyroid. He's
Yeah.
like, he's happy. He's happy for that. Um, Maybe that was a reason for being. Whatever, I don't know. I don't know. But he's looking at it a totally different way now. And maybe
Yeah.
we need to do that. It's not easy at all.
That's a synchronicity, right? Which people will often say, like, oh my gosh, that was such a synchronicity. And I'm really starting to see and understand that life is a synchronicity. It's one thing after the other. It's happening and aligning in a way that's meant to happen. And I believe that part of seeing it that way is that you're coming from that higher level of consciousness. If you're in the muck of it and you think it's horrible, then you're back in that level of, lack and
Mm.
resistance. And so if you can kind of rise above, think of it as the bird's eye view. You're tuning into that you were talking about the super conscious earlier. That is the super conscious. Your higher levels of consciousness are you on a super conscious level.
It's taking a step back and looking within, taking
Mhm.
that time to see and process. And I don't want it to be thought that I'm looking for it. I'm looking for the reason. Just let it come to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you may not even know because as life unfolds, things, one thing leads to another. And so it's a lot easier to look back and connect the dots than, right? So you just have to sort of let it flow. But you said something I want to mention. I know you'll love this because so many people are reacting to life, right? We're reacting. The word react and the word create have the same letters in them, but they're rearranged. So if you're constantly in reactor mode, you're not in creator mode. Creator mode has to be more ease, like you said, step back, take a breath, create some space. And then you can respond to life from a different place than that, knee-jerk reaction that we just as humans tend to do.
Well, back to the text that you were going to send because you were mad. And, what's again, it goes back to the three filter. Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? If you take a second, like, why, I don't need to do this. No. If you look at it, but what it's the knee jerk. I'm reacting.
Yeah.
And I'm mad. I'm going to send it. Take a look at it. Maybe there's some good in it. And what's the offshoot of that going to be? Is that going to create more issues that you don't need to deal with? Why do we want to do that? Why do you want to bring more negativity on to your life? A lot of it's easier said than done, but I guess when you get to that level of consciousness, like you have, you see it in a different light.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Think about social media when you talk about the text. There's so much. If you start reading comments on social media, there's so many people reacting, saying their point, right? 10 years ago, I would start to react. I had something I wanted to say, right? As I started learning this, I would actually start, and then I would just delete it and say, why do I need to add more negative energy into this conversation, right? I'm going to actually not pay attention to it because it lowers my level of consciousness. If I get into the nitty gritty of everyone's conversation, so you really do have to turn the other cheek and just not pay attention to it.
I do the same exact thing. And there is even times where I want to, and not often now anymore, and then I just don't. It's like nobody needs to hear more negativity. Why do you want to feed into it? Maybe you have an opinion, but it's just again, I think you nailed it with the reactor mode, that there is the knee jerk. You just want to, without even thinking. Why do we do that? What conscious level are we in where we, want to?
I just think we're in that third dimensional idea that we need to be right. The conscious mind thinks it needs to be right. So that brings us back into ego, right? Which ego is not a bad thing. Your ego is your personality. It's who you are. But if you're living from the ego, it thinks it needs to be safe. It thinks it needs to be right. And so those kinds of reactions come from there. One of the processes I teach is when you're in that mode and you're about to react, if you can start to train yourself to drop, imagine like you're sliding with your awareness from the center of your brain down into your heart. If you were just going to come down into your heart and then speak from there, you're going to, even though that feels like you're lowering, you're going lower, right? Consciousness goes higher, but your heart is actually fourth dimensional, connected really to all dimensions, but it's the fourth chakra and it's related to that being a more fourth dimensional being. And so if you can slide down into your heart and pause and then speak, you're probably going to come across differently in that pause. That's what I practice all the time. I have people in my life that bother me or annoy me or, like I'm not, it's just the way life is. I have a difficult relationship with my mother, honestly, but whenever I'm going to call her or when I'm going to have a conversation with her that I can feel is starting to get me into that reaction and I'm going to be right, I take a pause, I take a breath and I drop into my heart and I come across completely differently from that space.
You take a moment though, and you process it.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to share something with you. Earlier this morning, like an hour ago, I was on the phone in my car, a challenging situation, and there was definitely a lot of negativity going on. And I have a newer vehicle, and it was in the shop for this situation. This wasn't what the phone call was about, but the car had an issue where the screen, navigation, everything goes wonky, all over the place, crazy. It was in the shop. They couldn't figure it out. Now I have the car back, and that was like a month and a half, 2, whatever. I'm on the phone there was a conversation about something. I was like very negative. Somebody's doing some whatever, dealing with wouldn't you know it, the screen on my car of where the Bluetooth is coming from, all crazy. I couldn't even get it to go away. I even shut the car off. It was still all the. I believe the negative energy sent that screen kind of wonky. And probably same situation 2 months ago. Maybe I was on a phone call and there was some negativity ensuing, and maybe that's what caused it.
I believe that too, Steve.
Yeah, I do
Well,
too.
here, your listeners will love this. I believe your car has consciousness, a lower level of
Oh my gosh,
consciousness.
I 1 billion% agree with you, Jen.
Okay, good.
Oh my gosh. I have make it quick, we're out of time. I have an old Jeep. It's like 25 years old. I don't know if I shared this with you. It used to break down from time to time. And then I would be like, you piece of really? So like belt breaks. I'm in the middle of the road. I'm like, so then I got it fixed. Again, I say that the Jeep is in hospice. I mean, it's like all rusted up, and I just use it. I use it for kayaking. That's my zen. That's it. I use it like in the summertime, twice a month. That's it. So I started being nice to it. It's like, I love you. Thank you. We had a great day together, and I really appreciate it. I started giving it gratitude. I have not had an issue with it.
Yep.
It's all about
I believe
energy.
I believe it 100%.
And I do too. And I know it sounds crazy, but I just witness it. And then again, I betcha I had a negative phone conversation, and that's why the screen in my car was wonky back, 2 months ago, and it just happened again today. I don't know what caused it the previous. I bet you though, if I were able to remember what was going on then, I bet it was probably the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So every time you think about that phone conversation or the issue this morning, even though it's past, drop into your heart, because from higher levels of consciousness, there's no time. And so you can heal anything right now. Anything can be healed now because there's only now.
I believe and agree with you. And in many regards, even health issues that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
You are amazing. The passion and energy that you bring to this is unlike anything I've ever witnessed or experienced. Best way, Jen, if somebody wants to reach out to you, even as I start a conversation, I know this gets deep. How do they do that?
Yeah, start a conversation. You can actually get a consult call with me for 30 minutes on my website. It's a free consult just to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And it's jEnergy, jEnergy.com.
Thank you for today. Thank you for these podcasts. And thank you for helping us raise our consciousness and realizing what's going on around us. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having me. It's my favorite conversation.
Likewise. All right. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.